so like I said, this is going to be a free course. So it's not going to be super polished. It's going to be very straight to the point. I'm just going to kind of give you different concepts, throw them at you. Of course, if you have any questions, if you want to know more sort of specific strategies that are best for you personally, feel free to reach out. I'm gonna have my email. I'm gonna have both of my emails in here, my real estate one and my personal one. I recommend reaching out to me on the real estate one. I check that a lot more often, and I'm also gonna have my Instagram information as well, so you can always DM me if you have any questions. Like I said, I'm not a financial guru. I'm not a financial advisor. Some of what I say to you might not be what a financial advisor would say. Before we get too deep into it, there are some things that I think financial advisors say that I 1000% disagree with, and there are plenty of things that they say that I do agree with. The reasons why I disagree sometimes is because I do think that financial advisors are incentivized to tell people certain things, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to get some good financial information into your dome. So I have some notes here. I want to make sure I cover everything that I had in mind, some of the most crucial, critical things that I sort of think are worth mentioning. So you will see me refer to my notes. You will see me kind of look down. Don't let that distract you or deter you from the information that I'm going to share with you. So in this section, I want to say, first of all, why does all of this matter? Why does money matter? Oftentimes I hear, at least especially nowadays, people sort of have this idea that money does not matter. People say, oh, the rich are evil. It's not good to make money. You're hoarding wealth. All of that stuff. And by the way, I might curse in this video. Like I said, it's a free course, so it's not going to be super polished. It's not going to be super formal. I'm trying to go really informal. But when it comes to making more money, when it comes to people saying that the rich hoard money and all that stuff, it's all bullshit. The rich do not hoard money. That's not how money operates. Money is just a concept. It's not a physical, tangible thing that exists sort of in limited quantities. We don't have like a set amount of money in like Fort Knox that the rich are just holding on to. It doesn't exist. That's bullshit. Making money matters a lot. You need money. You need it to survive. Obviously, if you don't have money, you cannot buy food. I think we all understand that. Obviously, the more money you have, the more food you can have, the better quality food you can have, the healthier you are. Let's go back to that first pillar that I mentioned. You need to be healthy. Money overall just matters. You need it to be comfortable. And I think one of the biggest things that I think we understand this deep down, but I think a lot of us deny this. Money helps you from being stressed. I'm not saying that if you have infinite money, you won't be stressed. What I am saying is that many of the things in life that stress us out can easily be avoided with just a bit of money, with just a bit more money than average. Let's say, for example, you get sick, very sick, and you need to go to the hospital. For many people, if you don't have money, say your insurance, even with maybe you have insurance and maybe still your bill's high, it sucks. You're gonna get stressed. It sucks to be sick, maybe recover, go to the hospital, only to have a huge bill hit you and you have to pay thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you have a lot of money, you can mitigate that, or just it doesn't affect you at all. You can sort of just throw money at that problem and it goes away. If you have a relative that cannot afford to eat, or maybe has some issues with housing, maybe they got evicted and they desperately need money, they lost their job, who knows? If you have money, you can throw money at that and that all goes away. So money definitely matters. Anyone who tells you money does not matter is full of shit. They're lying to you. I think people do that to make themselves feel better about not having money, or maybe their own personal inadequacies with money. I would say, if you're around people that say those things or think that way, this is not being mean. I'm just saying, remove yourself from them, because they're like a bear. They're like crabs in a barrel. They're dragging you down. Don't stick around people with that mindset. You absolutely need money. Money does matter. I think every human's objective should be to find a way to make more money and maximize how much money they keep. And those are two different things, by the way. And I'm going to talk about that later on in this course. But Yeah, and I'm not saying you need to be super rich. I'm not saying you need to be ultra wealthy. I'm not saying you need to be like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or even a millionaire, to be honest. But I do think you need to have enough money to live a relatively comfortable life, to live a life that has minimal stress, and to be able to just do some of the basic things, have fun, be able to take care of your family, be able to solve problems quickly and easily if they come up, and they will come up because that's just how life is for all humans. You will have problems. But having money can help solve those problems. So money does absolutely matter. One thing I do want to point out is that it's not enough to simply earn money. I kind of mentioned this already, but it is what's more important than earning money is having the ability to keep money. And I think that's a concept that a lot of people, they sort of neglect. A lot of people they think about what it's like to make money, and they don't necessarily understand that keeping your money, having money is much better than simply just making infinite amounts of money. And I'll give you an example of this. Sometimes I'll hear about, there's a good book actually called The Millionaire Next Door. Not everything about the book I agree with, but one thing that comes up in the book that I do agree with is that a lot of people will get into like high status careers, doctor, lawyer, engineer, and they keep up with the Joneses. And what they do is as their income increases, their spending increases to match their income. So, for example, if you're a doctor that makes $200,000, rather than maybe spend only $50,000, maybe you had a very modest lifestyle before, maybe instead of only spending $50,000, $60,000, whatever, your expenses ramp up. However, the issue is that whenever you're comparing yourself to other people and what they're spending, I think it's almost human nature to want to be better, to want to outdo your neighbor. You don't want to feel inadequate. You don't want to feel inferior. So instead of just living a modest lifestyle, your lifestyle ramps up. And it doesn't just ramp up a little bit, it ramps up a lot because you're around all these other wealthy people who are making money. Instead of you just spending $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, you're spending $200,000 as the doctor. You're spending $250,000 as the doctor. Now keep in mind, I said that this doctor makes $200,000 a year. They're spending either the exact amount that they take in or $50,000 more than they earn. And I think that's where the issue comes in because they're spending more than they're earning. And that's where it gets dangerous. And I think that's where there's sort of confusion about making money. I think sometimes people like to make money and say, oh, I make X amount of money. Me personally, I don't think that matters at all. I've known people who they say they make a lot of money, but their lifestyle doesn't seem to match it. Or you can tell that they're in debt, or they kind of have issues, or it's just a weird thing. It's like if I met someone who made $50,000 but they spend $10,000 a year, to me that person's wealthy. If I meet someone who makes $500,000 a year but they spend $700,000 somehow, or $600,000 or $500,000, they're not wealthy. They're broke. So I do want to sort of kind of pound that idea, pound that information into your head. It's not always about how much you make. It is about how much you keep. I just think that's a good mindset to kind of keep in mind in life in general. One of the things I made this course for, when I was in college, man, I struggled a lot in college. And to be honest, it was such a difficult struggle that up until like very, very recently, it still affected me. To some degree, it still does affect me a little bit. But I've been able to kind of recover from it over the past few years. I look back on it, and if I was not in that struggle, life for me would be a lot different now. Hopefully in a positive way. You never know. Maybe in a negative way. Maybe I do think that there were a lot of lessons learned from me being in those situations. I'll give you a few examples. When I was in college, I got kicked out twice. Both were financial reasons. Like I said earlier, when you have money, you're able to fix problems a lot simpler. If I had more money back then, I wouldn't have gotten kicked out. I could have just paid my bills, because the reason why I got kicked out was because I couldn't afford some of my tuition. Not all of it, but there was I think it was like $1,000 or $2,000 that I owed, and they effectively said you cannot come back to school until you pay this money. If I had an extra $2,000, that would not have been an issue, but I didn't, so I got kicked out. And those were pretty brutal times because as a college kid, I'm like, at the time, I'm like 20 years old, 21 years old, around that time frame. I was still in college up until I got kicked out. I didn't have the credentials, at least in my mind, to get a really good job that paid well, that paid anything over like 15K or 20K. So it sucked. And I think one thing a lot of people don't understand is that when you're working in sort of like I'm going to call it a lower quality type of job, kind of like a retail job that doesn't pay much, pays like 10, 11, 12, $8 an hour. Not only are you not making that much money, but you're also competing for hours. A lot of those jobs, a lot of those companies, they don't always have a ton of hours to give to everybody that wants to work. And so the issue is that if you want to say, for example, work a 40-hour work week and bring in the maximum amount that you could earn in a week, because a lot of times they might not let you do overtime, you can't do it because there's just not enough hours to go around based on all the employees. They need a lot of people doing different things, but they're not willing to pay people kind of a full-time salary or a full-time wage, if that makes sense. So they would have three people, but all three people were part-time, and I was one of them. So some people might say, well, you're making $20,000, was that $10 an hour? You might make a few hundred every paycheck, maybe like 1,000, close to 1,000-ish, something like that. Yeah, maybe about 1,000 or so every 2 weeks. And it's like, not really, because I'm not working 40 hours a week. I'm working 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week. So I'm not making that much in the long run. So that sucked a lot. And so that's kind of the motivation to me making this course. I want to give as much information as possible to people based on my own failures and bad experiences, so you don't have to go through those same bad experiences or those same failures. There was a point where I did owe a lot of money to people. Actually, it wasn't even that much money. It was like $200 some. I owed money for rent, and I had some friends that took over the rent, and the overall amount that I owed was like $200 or $300. And of course, now we're not friends, but at the time I thought we were friends, and they tried to sue me in small claims court over that $200 or $300, and it became a huge issue. They were threatening me and all that stuff. I don't want you to have to go through that. It's very stressful. It's not very fun to get a call at like 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning from people just threatening you for money. It's not a fun experience, as you might imagine. So yeah, basically, money does matter a lot. Don't let people tell you that money doesn't matter. Money absolutely matters. Your goal should be to make as much money as possible during your lifespan and to keep as much money as possible during your lifespan and to learn skills that allow you to take the money, earn it, and then multiply it. Or at the very least, hold on to it and use it as a safeguard against inflation. Because I don't know if I have notes about inflation. I may bring that up, but inflation will eat your money very quickly, depending on how much money they print in society. Maybe I'll get into that in a future module. I don't want to get too deep into it now. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds. But yeah, money does matter.